what leaked from Donald Trump talk with someone in which he's talking about the situation in Gaza. And here is what he said.
General LCC tomorrow, sometime I believe. And I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. I mean, you're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. It's it's over the centuries that's many conflicts that site, and I don't know. It's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace. Temporarily, or would they it could be either. It could be temporarily, could be long term.
Yeah. Here is, what's your take on the view of Donald Trump?
He's like a jazz musician, man. He's just improvising, playing whatever comes out of his mouth at the time. He hasn't been paying attention to what's actually happening on the ground in Gaza. So we are now 15 months since Israel retaliated for the Hamas attack on October 7th. With allegedly the most powerful army in the Middle East. And they were going to destroy Hamas. And what did we see the other day when those the 4 Israeli soldiers, the females, were released? They were smiling. They were happy. Some folks try to claim that this was staged. This was, staged in terms of they had a gun to their head. Be happy. Oh, I'm so happy. No, that's not what was going on. It was genuine, and there was even posted on one of the social media platforms them speaking Arabic, and and they were healthy. They weren't raped. Now, since getting released, one of them has gone on and made a video saying that one of the guards was staring at her, and that was rape. I don't think she knows what the meaning of rape is, okay? Looks don't translate into action. But surrounding these 4 women were all these Hamas fighters, the Al-Qassam brigades. And they weren't wearing ragged uniforms. They were brand new. They looked clean. They were well put together. They actually reflected some uniformity. Hence in the army, that notion of wearing a uniform. The weapons they were carrying looked to be in good shape and almost new. And then today, you got 1 million plus Palestinians heading north. They're walking. These people, how they've survived is astonishing. And it's ironic. I haven't heard anybody comment on this, and so that's my job, come up with the irony. Their movement north, movement to freedom again, coincides with the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, when the Russian soldiers came in and freed what was left of the camp inmates. Sort of a fitting commemoration, I would say. So, yeah, Trump can raise it with King Abdullah of Jordan and General Al-Sisi in Egypt. And they're going to tell him the same thing they told Obama. There are 2 ways we can do this. No way and no way in hell. Not going to happen. And the Palestinians, this isn't just about finding them a nice place to live. Their demonstration today that they are going back to this, as Trump was accurate calling it pure devastation. Nonetheless, it shows that for those people, this is their land. This land is ours, and from their standpoint, God gave this land to them, not to the Zionists. So, I think Trump was, he's always the showman, and he thinks out loud. But I don't think it'll go anywhere.
But what we get from the way that Donald Trump is talking about the conflict is that he really doesn't want that sort of conflict in the Middle East, but he doesn't know how to get rid of it.
Right.
And here is the question: does he really understand that these people are not going to give up on their land? They're not looking for roof. They're literally seeking for their roots, not roof. And
Yeah.
here is what they're talking about. As you mentioned, they don't want a new place, as Donald Trump was arguing in that video, a new place with a better life. They want to rebuild their houses in the same land that they have been living for many years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what, and Trump fails to realize that. What's interesting is Trump's intervention with getting the ceasefire in place. It's sort of blown up on Netanyahu and the Zionists. Because they were told, the Israeli public had been told now for the last 15 months that, Hamas is destroyed. Al-Qassam is defeated. Oh, so the hostages are not alive. Well, now it looks like most of the hostages are still alive, which is testimony to the ability of Hamas to, have kept them safe. And unlike how the Zionists treat Palestinian prisoners in prisons, where they're subjected to torture and abuse, up to and including physical beatings, the Al-Qassam fighters and there are other Palestinian groups that are holding some of the hostages themselves. They're treating the Israeli hostages because they recognize they're valuable. You can't mistreat the merchandise, so to speak. So this has really created some problems for Bibi Netanyahu. And it'd be one thing if it's just a political issue for Bibi, but he's also got health issues. Reportedly has prostate cancer. They had to put it in a pacemaker, it's reported. And he's got some, family, so Bibi's not having a good 2025. His the Gentile New Year is not treating him well. Then this political pushback that started within the Israeli public, where they're going, hey, wait a second. Not only did we not destroy these people, they're back stronger than ever. And everything that we claimed we had achieved, we haven't. It's there on it. Well, you can see it. You can't hide from the images. So this has set in motion, I guess, a new dynamic that even there's some on the extreme right here in the United States. Alistair Crook had a great article about this the other day. Are coming out and just saying some outrageous, they're accusing Trump and Witkoff. They're accusing Trump of being like anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. Stephen Witkoff, who's, an Orthodox Jew, please. I don't know if he's Orthodox, but he's, reportedly, an observant Jew, keeps kosher. And yet they're attacking him. Why? Because they're actually working on a peace agreement. And, this is unrelated to what we're talking it's not directly related, but it is in the ballpark. It would not surprise me at all that Trump is working a deal with Iran. And because the Netanyahu plan is they want the United States to help them attack Iran. And these crazed Zionists in this country, here in the United States, I'm without explaining how I'm in contact with some of these people. I'm part of a group on a message board, and they're beyond. They're completely unreasonable. They're out of touch with reality. And what do I mean by that? They insist that the United States is going to, in Israel, they'll wipe out the Houthis, wipe them out. They haven't wiped out anything. They can't even wipe their own ass right now, it would appear. And that they're going to attack and destroy Iran's nuclear program. So they indulge this sort of military pornography, this vicious, violent fantasy that doesn't come to pass when in fact, Iran's not playing the game. And it's actually the spillover effect. You're seeing it in southern Lebanon too. Hezbollah is intact. Remember, we were told, "Oh, Syria, Assad's gone. Man, Hezbollah done. It's over, dude." No, that's not what happened. They're still largely intact. And it's Israel that's actually overextended. And then Israel's now talking about, oh, we got to be prepared to fight Turkey. Their big buddies up north that is continuing to supply them oil for now. So the place is a mess. And Trump, I think Trump genuinely would like to see some order brought to it, but he doesn't have a clue yet. So that the clip we started with that you showed at the top of the show, that was just Trump thinking out loud. And once he gets a chance, I think, to really sit down and weigh the realities, there's a pragmatic side to him as well. He is not a blind ideologue.
Laurie, do you think that is he learning from the Biden administration, or has he learned from the experience of the Biden administration? Because the way that he's talking about forcing Egypt and Jordan in order to accept these people, Palestinians, into their land, is the same way that Antony Blinken was trying to do when this conflict started. They were putting tremendous amount of pressure on these two governments, especially on Egypt, to do that, but they couldn't achieve that. It seems that in the eyes of Trump, as he was talking about MBS and reducing the price of oil in order to put pressure on Russia, it seems he sees the same way on Egypt. He thinks that he can defeat the public opinion in Egypt because the government in Egypt is under pressure from the United States and from the public opinion. The question is which one would overcome, and it doesn't seem that the government at the end of the day would ignore the public opinion, which is hugely against Israel and the way that Israel is trying to treat Palestinians.
Yeah, look, the United States doesn't have enough money to buy off Sisi on this. And that, what Trump was, Trump's not the first one to suggest, well, why don't the Jordanians, the Egyptians take these pesky Palestinians? Well, it reflects ignorance on the part of the American public that believe that, without any understanding or appreciation about what that land means to those people, what being in that particular area. Now, look, it's not great in terms of geography, in terms of physical features. It's not like you got the mountains of Hawaii coming up against the ocean, and this, deep blue ocean, just beautiful. It's got some nastiness to it, but it is invested with centuries, literally centuries of these people, their families, their grandfathers and grandmothers, their great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers, ancestors, generations of ancestors born and died in that area. And so they're not going to walk away from it. And there is, within the Palestinians, they hold a different view of, let's call it, relationships with family and with extended family and with ancestors and with heritage than your average American. I mean, the average American is not really tied to any particular piece of land, or because we don't have a long history here. I mean, my ancestors showed up here 400 years ago, so that's something. But we didn't settle in just one place and stay there and say this is our land. Palestinians, that's their land, and no international organization, no amount of money is going to buy them off. I mean, that's what we're witnessing today is so remarkable, that after 15 months of outright murder by the Israelis, the Palestinians are saying, we're heading back. We're heading back north. They're going to reoccupy. There's not going to be an unemployment problem in Palestine, in Gaza, for years to come. And while that's going on, though, the Israel is stepping up its attacks in the West Bank. And so the fighting's escalating there. Israel, I've said it all along since the beginning, Israel cannot fight its way out of this. It can't kill its way to peace. It's going to have to sit down and actually negotiate with the Palestinian people. The problem is the Palestinian Authority is just a corrupted, compromised institution. It won't be the one that comes up with a solution.
Did you see the pictures from Gaza, from the northern? People are getting back to the northern part of Gaza, and you see these forces, Hamas forces, Al-Qassam Brigade, and with the new arms, not from Russia, Iran, or any other country, but they captured these arms from Israelis.
Yeah.
There are a lot of forces in those pictures, and how they're gonna. This is Hamas. Larry, we were talking about for more than a year, we were talking about the situation in Gaza and how Israel destroyed literally everything in Gaza. But you see these people coming back, and the way that we're seeing the pictures.
Well, in fact, if you've watched, I've read some of the Israeli media on this, and what they're saying is saying, see, these guys, they hide themselves in civilians, so that's why we got to kill all these civilians. I mean, they're using it to justify genocide. And, people think, oh, well, I get particularly irritated with some of my fellow American citizens who will say, oh, that's an issue. How dare Hamas do that? I go, guys, read your damn history. That was my ancestors fighting the British, fighting the colonial empire. We were civilians. They were militia. So, they didn't go sign up and have to, get like a union card or for the Screen Actors Guild. No. Yeah, they are intertwined with the civilians because they're fighting for the rights of those Palestinian people. So, again, it's just one more example of the Israelis don't get it, the majority. But it is important to note, though, that there are several Jewish individuals and organizations that are in sync with the Palestinians about, They need to have their homeland. They need to be free.
Donald Trump talking about before January 20th, he forced Netanyahu into a negotiation, into a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. And during his inauguration, in his speech, he didn't brag that much about what he has done, which, in my opinion, was huge in terms of what has happened in Gaza. But he didn't talk that much about it. And later on, he was asked the day after his inauguration, when he was signing his executive orders, he said that he was asked about the future of the ceasefire. He said, "I don't know. This is not our war. This is their war." And Gaza then went on, and we can build Gaza. It is a beautiful place that we can rebuild it, and all of that. And recently, he said that he was trying to force Egypt and Jordan to accept Gazans to go there. That was the same sort of policy that we've seen from Antony Blinken and the administration of Joe Biden. What's happening right now in the mind of, not put it that way, I know that you're going to say I don't know what's going on in the mind of Donald Trump, but what's the strategy when you see all of these contradictory pictures together?
Well, remember, Donald Trump was successful in putting pressure on Netanyahu to get a ceasefire. But then Donald Trump's lack of understanding of the realities on the ground, he said things such as Hamas cannot be part of, Gaza's future, and that, the Palestinian people, are going to have to move so we can rebuild. And then you have the images of the hostages being released and the Al-Qassam brigades out there in full strength. Nobody defeated them. And they are in charge. And the Palestinian people, rather than saying, please remove us, lined up to march in on northern Gaza to reoccupy this devastated land because that's their home. And Trump doesn't know how to deal with that reality. He went to Egypt and Jordan thinking that he'd be Donald Trump, and they said no, because they know that if they bring in these refugees, if they bring in the Palestinians, it'll be the end of their respective governments. Donald Trump this is what happens when you don't surround yourself with genuine experts, when you surround yourself with superficial people. Because you create superficial solutions to complicated problems, which means you don't have a solution at all. And he will his go-to move is to punt. Things are bad. It's Israel's fault. That's your problem. You solved that one. We're done with this. We did what we can. We're out of here. That's not a solution. Just like with Ukraine. I mean, he's going to run away from these problems. Because to double down and get you entangled in the very conflicts you told the American people you were not going to get entangled with when you ran for office.
And the vice president of Iran in Davos was asked in the World Economic Forum, was asked about the policies of Iran in Gaza. The answer that he gave us that what is happening in Gaza, even in Lebanon, is not related to what's going on between Iran and the United States, because in his view, the resistance exists because of the occupation. It's not invented by Iran and Iranian government. Even before the Iranian revolution, we had that sort of resistance. How is that going to be understandable for the administration in the United States?
I don't know. I don't know what their level of comprehension capabilities are. Again, if he had the right advisors, they would make just that statement, that Hezbollah is empowered by Israel's ongoing illegal occupation of Lebanon. And now that Israel has doubled down on stupid and refused to remove itself from even more territories, all that does is further legitimize the resistance. But Lebanon's resistance against illegal Israeli occupation in southern Lebanon has nothing to do with Iran negotiating a strategic framework with the United States. The problem is Trump is a transactional guy, so he's going to come in and try and say, well, you have to pull the plug on Hezbollah, and the Iranians are going to say it's not our job to pull the plug on Hezbollah. It's a resistance movement against an illegal occupation. It's your job to get the Israelis out. If you get the Israelis out of southern Lebanon, then Hezbollah, I believe, is going to work with the Lebanese government, of which it is a major part, to create stability. But Hezbollah's whole purpose to exist isn't Gaza, isn't to further Iranian interests. It's to liberate all of Lebanon's soil. That's the only reason why Hezbollah retains legitimacy in the eyes of so many Lebanese, because Hezbollah is obligated under Security Council resolution to turn in its weaponry, to demobilize. But it didn't because of Israel's ongoing occupation of the Shebaa farms, which Lebanon views as its own territory. Now Israel's occupied even more territory in southern Lebanon. So, the Iranians are 100% correct on this one.
And when it comes to the situation in Syria, it seems that the Trump administration, here is what Tulsi Gabbard Scott said about Turkey in Syria.
He's one of the most dangerous. Turkey's Erdogan is not our friend. He's one of the most dangerous dictators in the world, and the United States government and media have no business helping this Islamist megalomaniac and his al-Qaeda partners. Turkey's been supporting ISIS and al-Qaeda terrorists from behind the scenes for years.
Is that going to change the picture in the eyes of the new administration toward Turkey, or it's a statement by an official of the government, I don't know yet, in the United States?
I mean, it's sort of a one-sided picture that she's painted there. It's not an inaccurate picture. In addition to Al-Qaeda, Turkey's been, supporting, sustaining the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamist elements. There's a reality that Turkey is not just a Muslim state, but an Islamist state under Erdogan. But the other reality is that Turkey is a NATO member. How do you balance that one, Tulsi? That's a tough one. And Turkey is also a very critical regional actor who aspires to be part of BRICS. Tulsi, do you really want Turkey to go to BRICS? Do you have a plan for BRICS? So what she's saying is accurate, but it's a far more complicated, nuanced picture than what she's put forward there. And the reality is the United States has a history of Tulsi. Who funded Al-Qaeda? Saudi Arabia, you think? You think there's some Saudi? And yet we have very tight relations with the Saudis. Isn't that complicated? Of course it's complicated. We live in a complicated world. She's not wrong to point out the realities of Turkey so that we don't have rose-colored glasses on there. But I think it's a mistake to say that we're going to build our relationship with Turkey solely based upon Tulsi Gabbard's assessment of Turkey's ongoing support for Al-Qaeda and their status as an Islamist nation. So it's far more complicated than that. And, the United States needs to be careful here. We of course, don't want to give Turkey unfettered, unconstrained access to rebuild the Levant in an Ottoman-like manner. But we also don't want to react precipitously and push Turkey into a conflict with the West or a total divorce from the West and jumping in with 2 feet into BRICS, which would put us in even greater geopolitical problems. So, I respect Tulsi Gabbard very much, and I think she would be a fantastic director of national intelligence. But, one of the things that when you're the director is that you bring in the genuine experts. Your job is to be more of a manager than an analyst, and have the experts lay this out, and then you take that data and you present it to the president. You can put your own personal spin on things, but it has to be an informed position. And what Tulsi Gabbard said there was just a very one-sided portrait of Erdogan and Turkey.
Do you think that Donald Trump is in a position to force Netanyahu to go forward with his plan if we assume that Donald Trump is not interested in escalating the situation?
I don't know. Is Netanyahu even going to be around? Last time I saw him, he was getting fingerprinted in court. So, look, Donald Trump, the United States has the ability to leverage its power on a number of nations in the world. Israel is one of them. If Trump wants to pressure Netanyahu, he can pressure. Turkey's another one, by the way. We can collapse the Turkish economy in a moment's notice. And Erdogan knows that at this point in time. It's transactional. But in the case of Israel, it's also political. I mean, given the role that the pro-Israeli lobby plays in financing Trump's political campaigns, and he has surrounded himself with very staunch advocates of Israel and Zionism. So Trump has to also be a little bit careful about going forward too strongly, lest he brook a lot of pushback within his administration.
How do you see the deal between Iran and the United States? Are we gonna finally get a deal that would work for both parties? Recently, the foreign minister of Iran was talking with Sky News, Sky News. Yeah. He said that the terms are much more complicated because of the JCPOA and the experience they had with the United States, but they're open because the main objective of diplomacy is hope. And for any administration, they're ready to talk, they're ready to negotiate. And do you see that Donald Trump, in the case of Iran, would be successful?
There's no reason for him not to be successful. Look, he has the history of the North Korean negotiations, and he knows what happens when you're on the cusp of a deal, but you have hardliners in your administration, making more and more demands. The deal collapses, and you end up having nothing. I think that there's a deal to be had, a deal that can resolve Trump's political issues surrounding Iran's nuclear program, and can resolve Iran's not just political issues, but also economic needs through the lifting of sanctions. And I think, both sides can come to the table, and there's a deal to be had. And I think that Donald Trump would be able to make this deal because there's no connection right now. Even Israel is starting to focus more on Turkey than Iran. You had a senior Israeli official say the Iran project's no longer our number one priority. Managing this new empowered Turkey is. And I think that even Israel is looking forward to stability that could be engendered into this. And BRICS is an effective way to absorb Iran's economic focus, meaning that Iran will become sort of regulated by its BRICS membership and the economic interaction therein. So I do think there's a deal to be had here. Again, whether Donald Trump is capable of, executing that kind of deal of conceiving, of accepting the nuances and the give and take. This isn't going to be a dictated outcome. This will be a negotiation. If Donald Trump can get the right people involved in this negotiation, I think that there's a deal to be had that'll be to the satisfaction of all parties.